Northern Ireland. I think that's a tone that perhaps you didn't get so much of when half an hour ago or so you talked to Jim Shannon. I think there is, and that speaks, I think, to the division in the DUP between those who are slightly more inclined to maybe in time think again about re-entering Stormont, re-entering power sharing, even if there is a Sinn Féin First Minister, and those who just cannot see the wins. Because with the DUP on the outside, it's quite interesting looking from their point of view about why that might be better. You are in a situation, you can see on your screen there, Chris Heaton-Harris, the Northern Ireland Secretary, who has to deal with the people that we're talking about on a near daily basis. You can see that from the DUP point of view, they get listened to more when they're outside the tent. So you had concerns about Boris Johnson's Brexit deal expressed by the DUP time and time again when Stormont was back up and running, and it wasn't clear that the British government paid a great deal of heed to that. Now outside, actually in many ways you've got the eyes of the world with the US president here, all looking and listening to the DUP, wondering what they can do, what they want. And politics always is a bit of a game of leverage, what you can get for your constituency, and in the background today, that's been quite a lot of what this whole event has been about. It's been about the promise of a brighter future that Joe Biden and Rishi Sunak want to paint, that sees billions in investment from the Windsor Framework deal, which does see closer relations with the EU and with America, and critically for the unionists between GB and NI, some of those trade barriers, completely all of them, but most of those trade barriers removed. And I think it's a question of whether or not an imperfect but better deal works for some of them, or whether as it were, there is just a large minority in the DUP who decide that because the legacy of Boris Johnson's Brexit deal will always be that there are European courts overseeing parts of what happens in Northern Ireland, that there will be some link to single market rules, that you will always get a European state aid regime in Northern Ireland rather than the one for Great Britain, albeit those change more similar, more alignment as a result of the Windsor Framework. There is always going to be this big difference between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. It is the mainland, Northern Ireland, closer together as a result of the Windsor Framework, but it doesn't completely expunge the problems caused by Boris Johnson's Brexit deal.
No, it certainly doesn't. And the question is the ideas that may well have been coming from the president. Jim Shannon said that he wanted to hear something more, but it's really not on him to say anything more, is it? Jim Shannon made it quite clear. This is going to have to go back to Rishi Sunak in the EU.
Yes, and I think there have been calls to look again at parts of the Windsor Framework from the DUP. Rishi Sunak, at the moment, completely sticking to his guns, sticking to the agreement that he feels that he negotiated. What's interesting, as we've been saying, is that the Windsor Framework has transformed Rishi Sunak's own political career. It hasn't yet actually changed very much in terms of the political deadlock in Northern Ireland. The question is, does that change?
Yeah, that is the question indeed. All right, Sam, do appreciate your analysis for now. I mean, Sam there laying out the difficulties that Northern Ireland faces in trying to restore power sharing. It's a situation that fell apart because of the situation with the Brexit arrangement, and of course the DUP being the party that brought down power sharing. Calls from President Biden to have power sharing restored, calls that have not thus far been heeded, but we can put some of the concerns and hear some of the concerns now from the leader of the Democratic Unionist Party, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson. I'm very pleased has joined us. I'm sorry to shout at you there, but I'm very pleased that you're here now so we can talk at normal volume levels. Sir Geoffrey, what is it you wanted to hear from President Biden today?
Well, first of all, I welcome the President to Belfast. It's always good to see the President of the United States in Northern Ireland. The United States is our closest ally, and we recognise that the importance of that relationship